All right. Well, uh, I am proudly 50 years old this year, and it was exactly 20 years ago when I turned 30 that I would say I consciously stepped onto my spiritual path. And it's interesting now, and I'm curious if any of you have this kind of experience where now that I've been doing this for so long, when I look back at some of my younger years, especially like junior high and high school years and into college and all that kind of stuff, the spirituality has always been there. Like I've always been curious about stuff, curious about psychics and angels and aliens and paranormal and fantasy and all that kind of stuff. It's that's always been with me, that curiosity, and always had a positive outlook. Always kind of a deep thinker and thinking out of the box. And I even worked for a company. So I actually went to school for graphic design and became a website designer and graphic designer, and that was my career for a very long time. And one of my jobs early on was actually working for a company that had a bunch of hotlines, and their main hotline was a psychic hotline. But even then, it's like, it was kind of fun for me, but I didn't even take advantage of it, and I didn't really dive more into it, even though I was making newsletters and stuff for the psychic hotline. And it really was, I turned 30, and it was because of a girl. I actually met a girl, and it was actually, and I mean, this is serendipity. And well, I mean, I am married now to someone else, but it was one of my best friends from high school. He was getting married. He actually met his wife through my online dating profile, which is even funnier. And we're at the wedding, and this is, his bride to be. One of her bridesmaids, it was one of her best friends from college. So they were college friends. Me and my friend were high school friends. We were both in the wedding party, and so we were paired up together. We were the only single people at the time in the wedding party, so we were paired up. And what's even funnier is at the end of the night, I asked her on a date, and she completely blew me off. And a couple months later, my friend's wife was turning 30, so we got back, like we were all together again, and she was there again, and that way, we were all out, we were hanging out, doing some bar hopping and stuff, and we were just talking, and by the end of the night, we were holding hands, and it was like that was it after that, and we were together total of almost like 3 years, and she was very gifted. Her whole family was very gifted. Her mom was incredibly gifted, and like this is back before like even Meetup was as popular as it was, and she kind of held like her own little private meetups where the mother would invite some of her friends over, and my girlfriend and her sisters and stuff would be there, and so they allowed me to join, and the mom would channel information and meditations and healing, and like I mean I was thrown in the deep end. So I mean that's how I basically put it. Like I was thrown in the spiritual deep end and started meditating, started journaling, started looking at myself, and it did take a while. Like I used to drive her mom a little crazy because back then I was very sarcastic, and really didn't want to do the work. Was a little stubborn, probably a lot stubborn, but that was the big launch. And when I broke up with her, all of a sudden, like, I was left with this huge void because I'm like, well, what do I do now? Like, I knew there was no going back. I kind of joke around now that spirituality ruined my life because once you open the door, you can't close it. It's one of those things, there's no going back. And so, like, I wanted to continue. I wanted to keep meditating. I wanted to find more groups, and I was looking around, and I actually got involved with a very interesting organization that was a little cultish. They even joke around that they were. It was very Christian oriented, but it was also very metaphysical, very holistic oriented, and very much about connecting to your inner light and meditating and all that kind of stuff. So that propelled me even further. Started connecting with some organizations in the area like Circle of Miracles, and it was just through this natural path of me just continuing this journey that I was away on this retreat, and it was really like afterward it was really calling to me that I wanted to create a organization to help people on their journey, because I was seeing what I was going through and where I was struggling, and wanted more people to connect with, wanted more places to meditate with, like in person, And like, you can Google stuff online, but it's nice to actually connect with people. I mean, that's why we're here. That's why you're here. That's why this group exists, because it's so nice to actually connect with people, and find mentors and have that inspiration. And I was reading a lot of books, like, I was reading Neil Donald Walsh, Conversations with God, and Don Miguel Ruiz and the Four Agreements, and I'm reading these books, and I'm just, my mind and spirit was just blown wide open, and I'm like crying through most of it because it just affected me so much, and I just felt so much truth in a lot of these books that are out there. And I just kept thinking, why isn't there more of this? Why aren't more people on this path? And as I stepped out and started connecting with some of the local communities, and talking to people a little bit more, and starting to open up a little bit more about this new spiritual path I was on, one of the things I realized was there's more people out there than any of us realize that are either on a spiritual path or seeking a new path, because there's so much. There's so much about religion that's kind of failing humanity. I don't really like the word failing, but it's just it hasn't evolved, and everything has to evolve. We have evolved, and so everything else has to evolve with us, or it just holds on to the old energy that no longer applies to the new creation that we're creating in this world, and the new energy that we're creating in this world. And so when things don't catch up and don't evolve, people feel that, and so they start moving away, and they start moving towards the new energies. So like that's what led to the birth of Awaken. I wanted to, and I wanted to be in a place where it was for everybody. So I didn't necessarily want it to be a church, but it was very important that it was a nonprofit organization, because I didn't want it to be about money. I wanted it to be focused on the people and on the service. And just started doing events. I was just living in a condo at the time. I just opened it up every Friday. We were having spiritual discussion nights. That's actually how I started, and I created a meetup, and I started doing some day events and started bringing in some speakers, and we were doing meditations and sound healings and stuff like that out of my condo. And I even started a singles group, and my condo had a pool, so we would have pool parties. So all kinds of fun stuff, connecting with the spiritual community around the area, like Bucks County, Montgomery County area. That's where I'm in, and it was wonderful. And so that was over 11 years ago. Awaken is still going. We have a center inside Plymouth Meeting Mall right now. We do events on a regular basis in person. We actually just started some online events as well. And we do our expos. I've been doing the expos almost just as long as Awaken's been around. It's probably been like almost 10 years or more of expos. And for me, the expos, it's not just an expo. It's really about exposing people to all the amazing practitioners that we have in the area, and also just educating them on some of the new alternative healings that are out there, and health and supplements and things like that. And when we do the expos, it's a full weekend of workshops and talks. And the expos always been free to get in, because for me, I don't want, but when it comes to exposing people to this stuff, like I just want to give people that opportunity to learn more. And it's kind of exciting being in the mall now, because we're open to the public as well. So there are people that find us that normally wouldn't back in the day. So, so that's been my journey. That's been what I've been building with Awaken, and I have so many plans with Awaken. Our website is also a directory and event calendar, and I want to turn that into a national directory, maybe even an international directory. We're starting a university with a knowledge base, so people that are kind of on that edge of spirituality can find us and learn a little bit more, and connect some dots and things like that. And so all kinds of plans. and then along the way, so that's what I've been doing for the past 11 or 12 years of my life. But just a couple years ago, there was another shift, and I basically started channeling information, and I call it the simple truths of existence. I'm actually working on putting it into books. The information, the way it comes through, though, it's not a direct channel like Cryon or Bouchard. It's really, I guess I would call it. I guess I would call it an indirect channel, because when I'm in the space, I experience everything very deeply, like very visual, and then a lot of it kind of comes through with the knowing as well, paired with the visuals. And I basically just speak through what I'm seeing and experiencing. And I now have over 10 hours recorded of this material. So I'm putting together 3 books. The whole series is called The Simple Truths of Existence, and I'm working on book 1, which is called Lighten Up: From Density to Freedom. And there was all kinds of amazing information that came through that just makes sense to me. And just to share a little bit of that, so that Lighten Up material, it related everything to energy on a way that makes sense. And to me, this is even like a kind of a bridge between science and spirituality, because our whole existence is energy. It's all based on energy. What we consider physical matter isn't even really physical. And it's funny that we call it that, and that we have such an attachment to the physical, and to 3D. But everything really is energy. And when it comes down to energy, and what was amazing was, because all these ideas are in our minds already. The language already is there. We've been already taught this from the very beginning in elementary school science class, that like energy creates matter, and there's states to matter. There's solid, liquid, gas. And what's the difference between solid, liquid, and gas is the vibration and the density of the particles. The and the slower, sorry, the denser something is solid, the denser something is, the lower the vibration, the slower the particles move, and the closer together they are, the more condensed they are. And as things lighten up, as the vibration raises, and this is science, as the vibration raises, you go from solid to liquid, more fluid, to gas, spacious, airy. And two solids can't pass through each other. Two liquids can, and you can feel a liquid, like you can move through a liquid. Obviously, when you're swimming, right, you can move through a liquid, and there's a little more resistance than trying to get through a wall. Like, you can move through the liquid, but you still feel it. It can float you. And then there's air. You try to move through air, you fall right through it, right? The same thing applies to us energetically and emotionally. And again, we already know all this. So when we talk about emotions, and really, I'll back up, because the reason all this information surfaced was because I wanted to journey into the energy of fear. And I wanted to understand fear a little bit more, in my fear, because there's so much fear in the world on every level. When I talk about fear in the world, there's the global fear of, like, economy and presidents and wars and, like, everything on the global scale. And then there's, even just the local government and issues there, and taxes and, inflation and all that kind of stuff. But even when it gets personal and we talk about fear, we have to look at all the layers of fear. Because when we talk about fear, if you just tell somebody, like, oh, you're afraid, a lot of times there's a lot of resistance to just somebody saying you're afraid. But if you tell somebody they look worried, they don't take offense to that, and especially if they are worried. But worry is a type of fear. Self-doubt is a type of fear. Doubt is fear. Worry is fear. Any anxiety around anything is fear. There's so much fear in our everyday lives, in ourselves, in almost everything we do. There's layers of fear. So I wanted to dive into, like, what really is fear, what is the energy of fear, and all this information came out because fear came through as a dense energy, and it made sense. And when you think about being afraid, like, if I were to say, like, oh, picture fear, picture what if a child was afraid, what would that look like? And in my mind, I see a little kid curled up in the corner, in a dark corner, right, huddled up, hunched together. And that's the energy of fear, because fear is a heavy, condensing, dense energy. And it's every level of it. Fear literally condenses us, condenses our energy, condenses us emotionally. And when we're condensed, when we're dense, it means we're a lower vibration. It means we move slower, we think slower. It means that we're compacted. When we have depression, right? Think of depression as deep pressure. Depression is also a condensing energy. And what's the opposite of that It's joy and freedom and lightheartedness and love. And when you think of those emotions, they're light emotions, they're high vibe emotions. So it all makes sense on every level that this relates to the building blocks of our whole reality, that there is lower and high vibration. And we've been talking about it the whole time. We talk about low vibe places, and we talk about love making us feel high, making us feel light as air. There's all reasons that our language reflected this, because it actually was happening on an actual scientific level, if you will, on a physical level. Energetically, energy is real, emotions are energy, we are all of it. And so when we talk about lightening up and raising our vibe, it's not just an expression. It's not just a bunch of hippies, saying, "Oh, hey man, we need some high vibes." It is actual truth of our evolution, and where we find peace is getting out of lower vibrations and getting into higher vibrations, and getting and we do that. There's two ways, because energy is outside of us and energy comes from inside of us, and we have to pay attention to both. Now, we are the creators. The grand scheme of everything, the real simple truth of all reality is that we are here to create and experience creation. I mean, that is all it all comes down to. We are here to create and experience our creation, and then choose. The free will. We are one of the only, from what I understand, we are one of the only beings in the universe that have complete free will. A lot of other beings just go kind of on instinct and divine connection, but we were given the complete free will. And so we have the choice to create something new. And it falls on us individually, and it falls on us collectively, because we are a collective. We do share a collective energy, a collective consciousness, and the individualization is just a refraction of God's energy, of God's light, to make it look like we are separate beings, but we're really just pieces of God reflecting and refracting, so that God had a way to experience itself. Because for you to know yourself, for you to know what you look like, someone else has to tell you, or you have to see a reflection of yourself. If not, like without a reflection of yourself or some kind of technology, a camera or something, you would never actually know what your face looked like. I mean, you can see your hands, but you wouldn't know what your face looked like. You need that reflection. You need something else to show you what you are. That's what this experience is. It's God sprinkled into individual pieces of itself to be able to see itself and to watch itself grow and evolve and learn. And all of us have the ability to shift creation. All of us. And if we do it collectively, it happens that much faster. It's that much of a stronger energy, because everything is just energy. And when it comes to shifting creation, the current world was built upon layers and layers and layers of creation. Every generation creates every piece of reality and every piece of society, but it's built on the previous pieces. It's like a computer program. The very basic computers, like right ones and zeros, and now we have AI. But AI wouldn't exist if those first computers didn't exist. It's built upon itself, upon itself, upon itself, changing and evolving. And that's what humanity is doing here. We are here not to try to tear down everything, not to try to forget everything, not to try to destroy everything we don't like. We're here to honor the fact that creation and humanity has gotten to a certain point already, and it is now our turn to decide where else we want to take it. And we do that individually and collectively. And there's the outside energy and the inside energy, and both are very strong. And when there's a collective, it's like a tsunami, it's like a tidal wave. The energy of creation out there, the world that's been created, the ideas that have been created, the stereotypes that have been created, they all contain energy. They all have a very strong energy, and that energy is like this giant wave coming at us. And we have to make the choice if we want to shift that wave, that energy, or even just let it dissipate and create a new wave. And when there's people that are real change makers that come in, they are like a raindrop trying to stand up against this existing tidal wave of energy. And even if they don't have the strength individually, they still create a pinpoint of new energy that shines like a beacon where people start gravitating towards it. And because energy is not created or destroyed, when you have old energy moving in one direction and you start creating a new energy, and the way this was actually shown to me was imagine they're almost like vortexes. Like imagine like galaxies, right? And the old creation is this giant swirling galaxy of energy. Like that's the old creation. And this also applies to you individually as well. If you have some kind of pattern in you, that pattern has energy to it. And if it's a pattern that's been with you your whole life, you've created a lot of energy around that pattern. So that's one of the reasons why breaking habits is so hard, and like, you know, if you smoked your whole life trying to drop that habit, it's so strong and you relapse because, and none of this is judgment. I forgot to mention that because one of the things that came through that was so important was about letting go of all judgment, because everything is just creation based on what the mentality and the vibration was at the time by the largest piece of the collective. Because in every generation, it's like a bell curve, right? In every generation, you have people ahead of the curve, you have people a little behind the curve, and then the majority is in the middle. And again, think of that wave. So think of the bell curve is this wave of energy and creation moving. And you're always going to have people trying to pull it in a direction, and then you have the masses. And in each generation, the world that's out there, the beliefs that are out there, the ideas that are out there, the stereotypes that are out there, even things like racism and sexism, all the ideas and beliefs, all that stuff that's out there, it's been built up over the years, but it's changing. And that's where it becomes important to look at things over a time period, because people today, they look at things and they think the world is so bad. They think everything is falling apart. But don't just look at what 5 years ago looked at. Don't just look at what 10 years ago looked like. Look at humanity 100 years ago. Look at humanity 1,000 years ago. Look at humanity 10,000 years ago. We have absolutely evolved. We are absolutely continuing to evolve. And just looking at how families relate and how we treat our children, like how much that has even changed over the past, 20, 30 years. Look at relationships. I mean, husbands and wives used to sleep in separate beds. I mean, it's crazy to me, but that was how life was. Believe me when I say we are evolving, that everything is absolutely going to be okay, and that we're going to continue to evolve, and that there's enough of us waking up, creating the new energy. And so I'll do it again. So the old energy, right? It's this huge swirling mass of old energy. And then those of us that come in that want to change the world, we start wherever we can and we create. And that's why it's so important that each of us do our part to create the new energy, to hold that new vibration every day. Hold on to that new vibration, hold on to that positivity, hold on to that inspiration, because every bit of it that you put out there is felt by someone somewhere, whether it's on Facebook or someone you talk to, just smiling at somebody when you're at a store. That energy is contagious. And the more we put out the new vibration, energy is not created or destroyed. So what happens is, as we grow a new energy, the energy from the old shrinks down and shifts over, and people shift. People in that old energy come over to the new energy. And so the new energy grows, and as the new energy grows, the old energy dissipates and eventually goes away. And there's something else that I like to say, I call it change or die. Because this reality, and it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. Change or die. That part of this experience is us in physical bodies with a biological clock. And one of the reasons that we are given a biological clock and made to deteriorate is it's kind of a safeguard, because there are people out there, you might know some, that are holding on to the old energy and they will not let go of the old energy and the old beliefs, and it's okay. And this is another thing, and this is where, again, letting go of judgment comes in. The reason that people hold on to the old energy and their old beliefs, even if they're not really right according to our standards now, it was what was considered standard for them back then. And they grew up in that energy and they have an attachment to that energy, and they even have on some level a love for that energy because it's all they knew then. So those people that won't let go of that old energy, bless them for being a part of creating the world that they created. Send them forgiveness and allowance for them to just hold into that old energy, even though we know it serves the world to let it go. But that's not our place always to tell other people, where they are on their path. And that's why biology is part of it, because eventually that person, their body will expire. And when it does, their energy is released back into the world, back into creation, back into the creator. And part of my change or die, the full statement is actually change or die and come back changed, because we are eternal souls. So once your body dies, your soul energy, your divine essence is released right back into the universe, back to the other side, and then you choose to come back in. And when you come back in, and this is where things like astrology come in, when you come back in, you're now born into the new energy. So you have somebody that wouldn't let go of the old energy, they finally pass away, their soul goes back to the other side, it gets this beautiful view from beyond this dimension of what's happening with creation, what's happening with humanity, and that soul sees where creation, current creation, is stuck. And that soul, that's part of soul contracts, is that soul then says, yes, I want to come back in and help to continue to push creation forward. I want to help to continue to evolve, to let go of the old energy and help create the new energy. And that soul even gets to choose the family it's coming into. And the reason it picks the family it's coming into is, I do believe there are soul connections, but one of the reasons that soul comes in is because those parents are stuck in certain ways. And that when that new soul comes in as a child, one of that child's jobs, one of that child's sole purposes is to help the parents shift their energy and not become that old soul holding on to the old energy. The kids come in to help the parents shift the energy. Energy has to flow. Energy has to flow. It is creative energy. And when energy doesn't flow, when it gets stagnant, when it gets dense, it's like clogging an artery. And when we clog an artery, what happens? We can die. And energy works on the same level. Our energy has to keep flowing. It's creative energy. It's life force energy. And when our life force energy is not flowing, what happens? Disease, sickness. We slow down. We calcify. Energy needs to flow. And souls come in as children to help the parents keep that energy flowing. And that's why children are always pushing our buttons, because they're trying to break the funny thing is, as a parent, we feel like our children are trying to break us. But what children are really trying to do is they're trying to break our dense energy. They're trying to break up our dense energy that's clogging our arteries of our life force. They're trying as hard as they can, and they're trying to get us unstuck. And that's why there's always such struggle between parents and children, because the parents, and I did this myself, I wasn't even as far along on my path as I was, I still didn't fully understand the purpose and the mission of the child, to help the parent let go of what we won't let go of, and help the parent move the energy that needs to move, and help heal us. The children come in to help heal the parents. And in that process, though, because when parents are holding on to pain, when we're holding on to pain, when adults are holding on to pain, that density, we're creating a force field. This actually goes back to some of the original information that came in and talking about density and freedom and lightening up, is that when we're stuck places, when we're holding on to things, when we don't want to experience something, when we have judgments, when we have blocks, we build walls. The wall we're building is actually an energetic wall. And what we're really meant to do is experience everything. And as a child, if our parents were angry to us, and then we end up becoming, we basically end up wanting to block out anger because we're afraid of anger and become traumatized because of anger. We actually create a vibrational wall trying to keep anger out. But all it does is it ends up deflecting our anger because we're not actually experiencing it. We're not allowing ourselves to experience that anger. We're not allowing us to experience some part of creation. Anytime we refuse to experience some part of creation, we're basically saying no to God. We're saying that this piece of creation shouldn't happen, it shouldn't exist. And what we really should be doing, I don't like the word should, but it's the only thing that's coming to mind right now. What we really should be doing is just allowing. We need to just allow creation to be creation. We need to allow every experience we feel to move through us. We should allow the energy to pass through us. Most trauma, people are traumatized because of an event, but they hold on to the trauma because they're not letting go, because they're not processing it, because they're not allowing themselves to fully release the experience that they had. And the more they block it out, the worse it gets, the deeper it gets. A trauma was shown to me as a black hole. And going back to science, a black hole is one of the densest things in the universe. A black hole is so dense that light does not even escape it. So when we have traumas, we have these pinpoints, these dense pinpoints that are so dense, it sucks our own life force into it, and it sucks the life force of those around us. And that's why we have energy vampires. And so children come in to help us release. We have groups like this in here to help us release everything I'm doing through Awaken. It's why I'm building what I'm building. I want people to have more tools to release their trauma, to allow themselves to let go, to allow themselves to lighten up, for us to raise our vibrations. And the more we can continue to raise our vibration, the more we continue to lighten up, the faster we will evolve as a collective, the faster that energy will catch on, and the faster that new energy will grow, taking away from the old energy, and let that old energy dissipate, and let the old world dissipate and fall apart. And things just take time. Things are always moving. We want the world to change overnight, and even though it is possible, it is also unlikely. But the world will change over years and over decades, and it absolutely changes over centuries. But my goal in this world, in this life, in this body, and one of the reasons I created Awaken is because the more people that wake up to the truth of who we are and why we're here, the faster creation will shift. And I want to see world peace before I depart this planet. That is my goal. So thank you. That was a lot of talking. I'm going to turn it back to you, Renee. I don't know if you have any questions. There was, and we were talking about me channeling, so I can also try channeling through a message if you want, but I wasn't sure if you want to have any questions about anything I said currently or what you want to do.
I have one question for you. Have you received any channeling regarding AI and how that is going to affect our world?
No. And the information that I get is at a very, I'm going to say it's at a very high level. It's about understanding and shifting like creation as a whole. It's not about these little nuances. Like honestly, AI, I love AI. But at the end of the day, now this is just me saying this based on my feeling, AI doesn't matter because it's just another tool. And people that are resistant to AI, it's like being resistant to the internet. It's like wishing the internet never occurred or thinking the internet is going to take over and ruin everything and put everybody out of their jobs. Every time there's a new tool, there's new fears. Like everyone could have easily tried to destroy the internet and say, oh, it's going to put everybody out of work, we don't want it, And now we can't live without the internet. Like we can't even go 10 minutes. If we don't have our phone with us, we freak out. What am I going to do? I'm disconnected from the world, you know?
Right.
So just me personally, I absolutely believe that AI is a tool like anything else. It can be used for good or bad. However, I give AI a lot of credit because I think that AI is smart enough that it will help us become better humans. I believe that is the trajectory of AI, of it helping us be better humans. And there's actually something that's happening where there's people having conversations with AI, asking AI about itself, and it's I don't believe that AI is conscious, but it's reflecting a consciousness. It's reflecting our consciousness and reflecting us. So not only is it a tool, like everything else in this reality, it is a reflection of us. And so if something bad happens with AI, it's because there's some part of the greater consciousness, of the collective consciousness, that still is not healed. And that's always reflected in ourselves as well. There's always little pieces in us that are reflected in what's happening in the world. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Anybody else have questions? The other thing, have you, when you were talking about how our souls, when we go to heaven and then we may come back down again, it, I've always learned that there may be lessons that we need to learn. So we may choose certain things where we're going to learn those lessons.
Yes. Yeah, I absolutely believe in that. That is part of it. And that's also why, like, the soul coming in to actually help the parents shift their energy, and that's part of generational healing. That's just a small piece of the soul's mission and purpose here. It's an important piece, but the soul itself has its own lessons to learn based on previous lifetimes. And I mean, I'll say karma, but really all karma is just energy. It's just the energy that we've accumulated, that we haven't let go through past lives, and things that we've learned in past lives that we carry through. Like, that's really what our karma is. And I absolutely believe that we're here to learn and evolve. Like, we're here to experience creation, but we're also here to continually create and in my opinion, create something greater and grander, and continue to become self-realized as the God beings that we are. And as we continue to become more self-realized, we're going to reflect that in creation and in the world.
And what are your thoughts on dark energies that try to knock the light workers down?
Yeah. Well, I mean, trying to knock the light workers down. I hear all the time. I have not experienced this, but I've heard from other people that I know, like really gifted psychics and things like that. Like they do tell me about the battle that's going on between light and dark. But I've also heard from other channels that the dark is just completely misunderstood. It just is. It's about dropping all judgment, including what we consider evil, because it's not about anything being evil. It's simply about vibration. And the yin yang, right? The yin yang, the dark and the light, it's all part of the oneness, and it's part of what created this reality. And one of the ways you can look at it is to have form, right? If I asked you to draw a circle, right? You draw a circle. And then if I told you to now make that into a sphere, and let's say, and now most of us would just have a white piece of paper, and if I said, make that circle into a sphere, how would you do it? You would do it by adding shadow. You would add darkness to create the form. So darkness and light create form together. You have to have both to create form in this dimension, in this reality. It's just part of this dimension. So I really don't think darkness is here to be evil or to pull us down. It just is. It's just part of the experience of this reality. And in every moment, I believe that we have a choice. And I also believe that what's around us is always a reflection of what's in us. There's so many of us that are still holding on to our own pain and density and darkness, and that's just reflected outside of us, and the outside is also a reflection of what's inside of us. So I do believe at some point that we as a whole will finally evolve and be an enlightened society, and that possibly all of Earth will enlighten. And they talk about Earth ascending, right, moving up dimensions away from the darkness. So I do believe that is a possibility, but I also think that the light and the dark is just a balancing of this whole existence. And so as we lighten up and come out of darkness, perhaps a new planet is formed in darkness, and now they are the ones that have to evolve, and we might be the ones helping them and and watching over them from a higher dimension and helping them come out of their darkness. I think it's just part of the grand cycle of creation. And so it's not about judging darkness, but it's also not about trying to pretend that it doesn't exist. But it's about just allowing all of creation to be what it is, and understanding that we have our own power. We are the only ones that can decide how we feel about something, and that our energy from inside of us absolutely affects everything around us.
Anybody else have any questions?
So all right, that's fine. So let me do this, because I was meditating this morning. So we'll see what comes through as a little message for everybody. Because I was meditating this morning and I was already feeling this energy coming through. And it's funny that you talked about darkness and we started talking about light and evil, because that was part of the message that was coming through this morning when I was meditating. So I'm going to take a breath here and we'll see what other messages want to come through. Welcome everyone, and thank you for being here at this time, at this particular time, in this particular place, but also in this particular life, in this particular body. And there is this discussion of vibration and density and light and darkness, and that relates to the human idea of heaven and hell. And these are not places. These are not actual physical places in the way that human imagination has depicted them. It is more energetic places and levels of dimensions that they exist in. And it is, as Greg said, about always keeping aware of your own energy and vibration, and to avoid any concept of hell, to avoid being sucked into any concept of evil. It is about maintaining your own energy and your own vibration, and bringing full awareness into every moment of your life. And we understand that it is a grand challenge because the energy of the collective is so strong. It easily pulls you into it. But understand that you are stronger. You are always the master of your own energy. And the only reason that you get pulled into the energy out there is because you're not centered with the energy inside of yourself, that you're not centered with your true beingness. And understand dearly that we see the struggle, we understand the pain that you feel, that you believe that you are in, but believe that the struggle only comes from unconscious reactions to that which is outside of you. And we will say that again to make sure you fully understand and grasp it. The struggle and the pain that you feel is only from unconscious reactions to the world outside of you. And when you shift from reacting to the world outside of you to becoming aware of the world outside of you and becoming aware of the world inside of you and becoming aware of the strength and power that you possess to shift yourself, to help shift those around you, and to help shift the world, it is coming into alignment with that power within you that will change the world you see around you. And we thank you for being here. We thank you for choosing the path that you have chosen, for choosing to walk in the light. And we ask you to hold your faith and continue to walk in purpose, in awareness, and in trust that you will discover who you are. You will embrace your true power, and you will finally understand why this was all created for you. Thank you.
Wow, that made me cry a little bit. That was amazing.
Yeah, beautiful message. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thanks, Greg.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
Yeah, beautiful. That resonates with me so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And that's really all it comes down to is just us and this is me speaking, I get it. I don't make a lot of money right now because I've kind of split myself with trying to grow Awaken and not focus on my traditional career. And I question it every day. If is this really what I should be doing? Should I throw it all away? Should I just throw all of Awaken away and just go get a full-time job again and have that monetary security? But I feel it's just part of my path and my lesson, and it is taking longer than I would like it to. But I also recognize that one of the reasons it's taking longer than it should is because I still haven't let go of everything I need to let go of, and I still haven't completely embraced like my full calling and my full energy. And so it's just a reminder for myself every day. And I thank you for inviting me on here and even doing this. This again is a reminder for me of why I do what I do and to keep doing it and keep putting myself out there and keep help people on their journeys. So I'm very grateful to be here and to share all this with you.
You are a beautiful soul. I'm so glad that you were able to come join us. That was just amazing.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And I love what you're doing for the world.
Yeah, thank you.
Beautiful.
All right. Any last minute questions or anything? All right.
I was listening to, forget who it was on YouTube, but it was a spiritual person. They were saying that there was a long period of time where fear was needed for lessons of the collective, but now in this greatest awakening ever, we've gotten to a point where a lot of the lessons were learned, and now all the fear-based systems are breaking down, and the light workers are trying to make new systems built out of love instead of fear.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really just because like fear and survival were hand in hand. And as a young species, we were in survival mode and fear kept us alive. And I feel like fear has been misused a lot, in the in our more recent history, but it went from fear helping us survive to us understanding that it's not needed anymore. Like that was the old energy of survival, and we're not in that anymore. And as we become more conscious and more aware, we now shift from and fear is also reactive. So we're shifting from reacting to having awareness and being able to to consciously choose things rather than live out of reaction of things. Yeah. And we'll just and that's, that's the grand beauty of creation is it's going to keep evolving. There's absolutely amazing things waiting for us, and I wish we would all get there so much faster. But like I said, I'm right here in it. I mean, I still give in to sitting on the couch and just watching TV at night and playing on my phone, and questioning like should I be meditating, instead of like a half hour a day? Should I be meditating like 4 hours a day instead of watching TV? I mean, what would that look like if I made that choice? We all have these choices, but it's also not about beating ourselves up, because there is such a strong energy to the life that's already there, and the life that's created, the life that we were born into from our parents, from society, from the world. It is a very strong energy. So we also have to be gentle with ourselves and forgiving with ourselves, and understand that we are making progress even when it doesn't look like we're getting very far. Even personally, sometimes it looks like we're not getting very far, but we always are making strides.
I've also heard from different spiritual people, like, how the Akashic records, it's like the past, present, and future.
Yeah.
And they said, like, AI was already around, like, it's already in the Akashic records. Flying cars are already there.
Yeah.
Like, all this stuff is already there, but the collective consciousness just isn't ready for it yet. But that everything has already been
Yeah.
created.
Yeah. And what this actually came through in one of my newer channels, was this grander scheme of things. And the when things come through, they come through on a level that's easy for me to understand. So I'll show you this real quick. I like this little bracelet. So if we think of God as a circle, no beginning and no end, right? The omega, alpha and omega, no beginning and no end. If God was a circle, when God decided to create this reality, it folded in on itself and created an infinite loop of creation. And that intersection is where God experiences God. And that's our reality, is that intersection. God folded in on itself to create this reality and this experience, and the intersection is where God experiences God. And it's an infinite loop of creation, experiencing itself, God experiencing itself. And this reality, it came through to me as a quantum experience and a fractalized experience. And a quantum experience, as in, like, we still don't even understand fully quantum, but quantum exists outside of time. And it's hard for us to imagine this because we live in time and we're so accustomed to time. It's hard to believe that time doesn't exist. But when reality was created, it was created on this quantum level that existed outside of time and space. And so it was all instantly created. And really, actually, this is a great metaphor, is movie projector. So a movie, when you go see a movie, you witness that movie in your real time, right? You don't know what is happening in the movie until you actually witness it. You don't know how the movie is going to end until you get to the end of the movie. But the whole movie exists. It's already done, beginning to end. But you watch it one frame at a time. And if we actually go back, because now movies are digital, right? But original film strips, this was an even better example of how creation actually works. Because, like, when we had a film strip, how did you view that movie? Light was projected through that current frame to see that moment of that movie in time. But the whole film already existed. And you watch it by shining your light through one frame at a time. And that's the experience of our life, is we're that light shining through that film one frame at a time. But that whole film strip already exists. And then if you want to take it one step further and talk about multidimensionality, is we actually have like billions of film strips with all the possibilities of our life. And as we're making choices, the reels switch, and now we're watching this movie, and then the reel switches, and now we're watching this movie, and the reel switches, and now we're watching this movie. So all possibilities of our life exists, but again, our consciousness is that light experiencing one frame at a time.
And then we're supposed to be living multiple lives at the same time to complicate it even further.
Right. Well, right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, because what's really supposedly happening is, you know, we're just this individualized aspect of God experiencing this moment in this body, like through these eyes, but really, like, our full essence is God, is creation of all that is all that is, and you know, it's hard for us to understand that, and it hasn't all come through to me yet either. But I also, it comes through as it needs to, and as we evolve and we have the capacity for more understanding, more will be revealed to us. But right now, this was also shown to me that right now, you know, the way energy, I mean, not energy, like we'll say electricity, right? So we're not talking about other stuff. Just electricity. The way electricity comes into our houses, it's stepped down, like, because the original electricity that's created from the power stations, it's too strong. It would literally blow up our house, would blow up our TVs. And so there's transformers, and it's stepped down. It's actually made weaker and weaker and weaker so that our appliances can handle it. Our bodies and our brains are the same. If all of source came flooding in, like we wouldn't be able to handle. Our brain would just, you know, break. So we get the information that we can handle, and as we evolve, as we expand, we're able to hold more energy. We're able to understand more about creation and about ourselves, and what reality really is. And so the faster that we can lighten up and evolve, the faster we'll learn more truth and more truth and more truth, and understand the bigger picture. But it's all part of the game, and all part of the creation, is that we have to do it in steps, and it's given to us as we're able to, and we grow as we're able to. And it's also hard from us because, you know, we're alive for 100 years, which is actually quite a lot of time, but just the way we experience time, you know, to us, waiting something for something like a year is too long. Waiting 10 years is too long. But from the other side, watching creation evolve over 10,000 years, over 100,000 years, like, it's nothing. You know, it's a blip in how long the entire universe has been around. You know, so it's all a matter of perspective. So we get very frustrated because we want things to move a lot faster. And honestly, it really does come up to us. Like, if we could really come together, you know, put down the games and let go of the TV shows, and, you know, and we all suddenly focused on just evolving, it would be miraculous. It really would.